Hello, hello.
Are we good? It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission for November 15th, 2021 to order. We'll start with roll call. Commissioner Varnell.
Here.
Commissioner Littlefield. Present. Commissioner Russell.
Here.
Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner George. Not available. And Commissioner Cornett.
Here.
Go on to item 2, approval of the minutes of the October 18, 2021 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission. Do we have a motion concerning this item?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
Second. Second, Varnell.
Okay, second by Commissioner Varnell. And do we have any talk on item 2, the minutes? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Varnell to approve the minutes of the October 18, 2021 meeting. Can I have your votes, please? Vote for approval. Yeah, he's still logging in. Okay, item has passed, all 8 in favor. We go on now to item 3, reports on licensed taxi and record services. That is not for this meeting, that's a quarterly update. As of right now, that'll be in January, correct?
That's correct.
Yep, okay. We go on to the consent docket. Is there anybody here speaking against the item 4A on the consent docket? Okay, do we have any staff input on the consent docket?
No, this item's being presented for approval. This particular interchange meets one warrant for use of signalized control because it's over at I-40 and Harrow Road. And there are two intersections. One meets warrants, the other one has got sight distance issues. So, you know, as a mitigating factor, this would be an appropriate location for signalized control. The Department of Transportation's taking care of all construction, so that's why staff is recommending approval of the item.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning the consent docket?
Motion to
moved.
approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Miller, and do we have a second? Who had a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any talk on the consent docket? Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent docket by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Grab your votes. Okay, item has passed, all 8 in favor. We go on now to items for individual consideration. 5A, S. Shane Paint II, City Manager, City of Nichols Hills, to consider a signalized mid-block pedestrian crossing on Northwest 63rd Street, approximately 680 feet west of the west curb line of Northwestern Avenue. Let's see here. Do we have anybody here to speak on this item? Okay. If you could come on up, if I could have your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
My name's Shane Pate. I'm the city manager for the city of Nichols Hills. Wasn't entirely sure I'd be able to make it today, so I'll be pretty brief in what I have to describe. I think you have your materials, but I first want to thank Stuart Chai and Eric Winger for coming to Nichols Hills and meeting with us and coming to what we think is the best answer. But essentially, there's a lot of development happening between Nichols Hills Plaza and Nichols Hills and Class and Curve Triangle. And which is great for both communities, but it's created a little bit of a pedestrian traffic issue for us, and particularly with the Starbucks that's on the Nichols Hills side. There are some cars that are kind of blocking the traffic a little bit there, and we're going to have about 750 more people coming into that Starbucks and into our plaza here in the coming months, and we're already seeing. Lunchtime, you'll see 5, 10, 15 people walking just across the middle of that street right there. And so we would like a safe way for them to access between our two streets. City of Nichols Hills is willing to pay for the infrastructure costs and with the hopes that, like we do with our other traffic signal there at Grand and 63rd, that Oklahoma City then would take on the maintenance responsibility of it, which makes sense because it aligns with your system the way it is now. So we have our city engineer, Grady Wade here, who can answer any technical questions, as well as a representative from Washington Prime, Shane McWhorter, who owns, Washington Prime owns the plaza and they own Class and Curve and the Triangle. And this helps us solve a lot of problems, but it's also good for Nichols Hills and good for Oklahoma City because our pedestrian traffic can access both retail spaces, so we think that's a very good thing for us both.
All right, sir, if I could have you fill out one of the green cards as we press on. Did any of you two want to speak now or just want to wait for comments? Okay, very good. Anybody else wanting to speak on item 5A? Okay, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. The City of Nichols Hills retained Lee Engineering to perform a pedestrian signal warrant analysis for this location. based on their anticipated future volumes due to the construction on the Oklahoma City side of Northwest 63rd Street and the existing commercial development on the north side in Nichols Hills. They're expecting that this location will meet warrants for the use of a pedestrian signalized crossing. As Mr. Pay mentioned, the city of Nichols Hills, if this item is approved, will bear responsibility for the construction of the signal, preparation of all drawings, utility relocations, and it would be at some point in time, if this item is approved by the commission and then constructed by the city of Nichols Hills, it'll be incumbent on the city of Nichols Hills to transfer their assets to city ownership. Other than that, action on the item will be at the discretion of the commission, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on the application.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5A?
Move for approval?
We have a motion to approve item 5A from Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner Hale. Do we have any talk on this item? Yes, sir.
Not only is this going to be an outstanding asset for the commercial interests involved on both sides of 63rd Street, but the neighborhoods as well. Meadowbrook Acres, Brookhaven neighborhood, Glenbrook neighborhood. It's great pedestrian connectivity. I'm 100% for this.
All right. Anybody else wanted to speak on this item here? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5A from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Can we have your votes, please? Item is approved. All 8 in favor. Thanks very much, sir, for your time. We go on now to item 5B, Jesse Rush, Assistant Director, Embark, to consider signalized mid-block pedestrian crossing on North Clawson Boulevard, approximately 65 feet north of the north curb line of Helm Street. Hello, sir.
Hi, good
Can I have your
afternoon.
name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes?
Yeah, good afternoon. Jesse Rush, Assistant Director of Operations for Embark, 2000 South May, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73108. Try to keep it simple, just here to answer any questions the committee may have.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak on this item? Okay, staff input, please.
All right, you've got our comments before you. The nature of this item is for a signalized pedestrian crossing that will essentially link some proposed stops for the Northwest Bus Rapid Transit project, which is up and coming, I believe, in the next couple of years. At this particular location, one of the things that's not addressed in this report, because it's an ancillary use, would be the what a mid-block signal at this location can do. The BRT, when it starts operating, will travel, when it's traveling north on Clawson Boulevard, is destined to turn to the west or turn left at Northwest Expressway. And in order to do that, it'll have to merge across 3 lanes of traffic in order to arrive in a left turn lane. This signal will be configured such that, in addition to being used for pedestrian purposes, it can also be preempted by that northbound bus in order to halt traffic, allow the BRT to merge from one side of Clawson to the other, you know, by holding back northbound traffic. So that's not a reason for justifying the signal, but it's an ancillary use for it. And other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on the application.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning 5B?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Littlefield and a second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on this item? Yes, sir.
In addition to the staff report regarding the bus service, there's also a facility on the west side, very near this site, that is I know I'm not going to be able to remember the name correctly, something like New View. It's a facility that works with the blind and the vision impaired. They had come to us a couple of years ago or a year ago or so and looked into this idea at that time, and it didn't seem feasible then. So this is just going to be a great thing for them.
Okay, anybody else wanting to talk on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can we have your votes, please? Okay, item has passed, all 8 in favor. Thank you for your time, sir. We go on now to item 5C, Pauline, Pollock. To consider no vehicles in excess of 2-axis restriction on 1 South Francis Avenue from South Chartale Avenue to approximately 180 feet south of the south curb line of Southwest 59th Street, and 2 South Chartale Avenue from South Francis Avenue to approximately 180 feet south of the south curb line of Southwest 59th Street. Hello, ma'am. Can I have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes?
Pauline Pollock, 709 Southwest 60th Terrace, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73139. I'm here to represent our neighborhood. We have more than 2 axle trucks coming through the neighborhood with no outlet. Down my neighborhood is lots of cars parked on each side of the street, kids everywhere, people riding their bikes, people walking, and just very busy for big trucks to be coming down through. Also, they go in to eat at the restaurants, even after their deliveries. And I was just asking for signs for no more than 2 axle and no outlet. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wanting to speak on item 5C? Okay, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. The axle restriction sought will essentially limit truck access into this neighborhood to those vehicles having business within it. I mean, city services, moving vans, the like. Anyone who's got a purpose for being within the neighborhood is still authorized to enter. What is being sought is something that will limit the amount of commercial-related activity, not physically within the neighborhood, which is the reason why the truck restriction as proposed does not start till it gets to the boundary between the commercial breakover and the residential portion. So on page 6 of your report, you will see that we've got, on one of the times that we were collecting photos in preparation for the staff report, there was a multi-axle vehicle within the residential portion making a delivery from the wrong side of the road, and that's one of the things that Ms. Pollock is seeking to address by the truck restriction. So action on the item will be at the discretion of the commission. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have concerning the application.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5C?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
Second.
That came from Commissioner Russell. Okay, do we have any talk on item 5C? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Russell. Can we have your votes, please? Item has passed, all 8 in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We go on now to item 5D. Mark W. Missel, Treasurer, Stonebriar HOA, to consider all-way stop control at Stonebriar Lane and Crest Ridge Drive. Hello, sir. May I have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, my name is Mark Michaud. I live at 193 Northwest 194th Terrace, Edmond, Oklahoma. And I'd like to start my comments referring you to page 10, just to kind of give you an overview of our subdivision. We believe it's a unique subdivision, and first of all, we are right on the edge of Oklahoma City and Edmond, as you will see. And the intersection that we're talking about basically are the 2 streets that have entrances from 192nd. We have Stonebriar Lane on the west side and Stonecrest Drive Crest Ridge Drive on the east side, and they come into the neighborhood and they intersect right there. That's the main intersection for the neighborhood, and that's the center of our activity. Our clubhouse is right there on the northeast side. It has a swimming pool and swing sets, playground, and I'll have a picture up there that you all can see. And on the other side of the street, there's our green belt area that has a tire swing, and kids go down there and play in the creek. And so there's a lot of cross traffic there as far as pedestrians is concerned. And people riding their bicycles, pushing their babies, and walking their dogs in that area. It's a high traffic area for pedestrians. I was actually going to talk about there is a section on page 10 that shows the enclave Stonebriar, and it's kind of grayed out. That is actually part of our homeowners association. It's a separate homeowners association, but it's all one. It's private drives in there, so the speed limit in that area is 20 miles per hour. So a good portion, there's 132 homes in there, and but they share the same streets. There's a total of 408 houses in the subdivision at the moment. And again, it's on the outskirts of Oklahoma City. There's a lot of our residents that think that they are Edmond residents, and Halloween was pretty tough, people trying to figure out which night to go trick-or-treating. I'm actually going to be appealing to the discretion of the board today, and the study that was done, we appreciate the Public Works Traffic Management Department doing it. But there's a formula. One is the amount of cars per day, speed limit, and vehicles per day. And I just wanted to touch on, the study was fine, but on there was the spot speed study that was done on October the 29th, 73 vehicles. And we have a 25 miles per hour speed zone, but based on that one study, over half the vehicles, or almost half the vehicles, were speeding. And the highest was 37 miles per hour. And I think they use a police car to register that. And if they're speeding when they don't, that's not how they.
No, I don't want to interrupt, but no, we have data collectors that will work, and they try and do it as innocuously as they can, but we don't have police vehicles out when we do studies.
That's fine. But anyway, it was done for an hour, and that goes to the next field review that talks about the sight distance, and what's being used in the study is a minimum required for 25 miles per hour, 235 feet, and it meets that. But if the cars are speeding, that sight distance is going to be off. And there is a desired range of vision, and for 25 miles per hour it's 315 feet, 35 miles an hour it's 515 feet. And I think that with that many cars going much faster than the 25 miles per hour in the area, that needs to be considered as well. And I'm not sure when the study was actually done. We were hoping it was going to be done while our pool was open, because that's really when we have a lot more traffic in that area. But we don't know how long that was done. But anyway, we all know what 5 o'clock traffic is going home on the main roads, and I submit that there's also similar time frames that are higher density than other times, and we're not sure when that study was done. There's one of the things that you're talking about, the right-of-way intersection, and it looks like that it says on page 3, section 2B4, right-of-way intersection, one of the items to be considered is not only the vehicular traffic, but bicycle and pedestrian volume. And I'm not sure if that portion was considered or not, but I do want to submit that we do have a lot of kids playing in the area, people walking their dogs and so forth. Page 5 talks about the traffic device locations, and one of the items that is to be considered is to provide greater safety and efficiency in the use of streets entering and leaving the intersection. And I would submit that that also includes the pedestrian traffic as well. Again, this is a growing community. I actually appeared before this board 6 years ago, and we were denied the four-way stop signs at that time. One of the reasons was because we only had 30 homes that were built in sections 5, 6, and 7. We now have 180 homes built in those sections. And this past year, we had 48 new homes built in the area, and we still have some more to go. So it's a growing neighborhood, and we just ask your discretion in looking at this. And the other thing is, this is a subdivision. It's not like out on a main street. The people who would complain about it are the residents, and we have a majority of our residents who are supportive of this. At our HOA annual board meeting last year, this was a priority to get this done at our last meeting. And so that's why I'm here petitioning again to see if you all would permit a four-way stop sign there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I have two other people that have paperwork on, or at least one other person. Anybody else want to speak right now? Yes, ma'am. And name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, I am Julie Parton. My address is 19601 Rambling Creek, Edmond, Oklahoma 73012. You can actually see my home in this diagram. It is the closest one to the intersection. We've lived there about a year. I see it with my own eyes. There are near accidents there daily, multiple times a day, between not only vehicles, but cars and pedestrians. This part of the neighborhood was poorly designed. It is the central artery into the neighborhood. I know he covered a lot of it, so I'll just breeze through quickly. As you'll see in those photos, it's a pretty long uphill drive with walls on the side, and it's very easy to mindlessly go 30, 40 miles an hour. Out of nowhere, it clears, and you're all of a sudden faced with not only cross streets, but two play areas that flank either side of it, and the clubhouse and the pool. So the drivers are blindly confronted with all kinds of hazards. Our neighborhood is really united in this. It wasn't hard to get the signatures. If you're wondering who gathered the signatures, it was a group of 5th grade boys who were really tired of almost getting ran over right there. Several people in our neighborhood have stated that they don't feel comfortable using the amenities because of this. One mom with a special needs son had a very close encounter. I personally was walking 4 kids across the road. A car was blazing up. I tried to stop it. It came within inches of hitting my daughter and I. Then he pulled over and said, "Get out of the road." This was a person looking at the houses. It was not a neighbor. It's a very common occurrence. My mother, who visits frequently, said she's not comfortable walking in our neighborhood. And lastly, this traffic study was done on a chilly day. As he mentioned, I think if it was a weekend, whenever the pool is open, there might have been a different result. I've gathered a couple of testimonies from people in the community who wish they could be here today but couldn't. As a mother of 2 young children, I worry every time I cross the street to get to the playground or the pool, often on bikes or on foot. We've had several dangerous encounters with cars coming around the bend too quickly over the last few years. A stop sign would drastically decrease this risk for our children. That was from a neighbor, Laura Peck. I wish I could come to the hearing. This intersection is not safe. While the traffic count may not be high enough, the curve in the road always allows very little visibility to all pedestrians, as well as drivers coming up the passing. I live at one of the houses closest to the intersection, and we have had numerous dog walkers, bikers, and children who cross the intersection. A car who is not going the speed limit of 25 poses a serious risk. Please add the stop sign. It's not worth the price of not having it. That's from homeowner Carissa Pennington. This is from one of the 10-year-old boys who collected the signatures, Tice. As a minor who's always out riding, I've encountered multiple times where I've been really close to being hit. Drivers from in and out of the neighborhood speed through there and act like people going the speed limit are in the wrong. Four-way stop signs should have been put in this location a long time ago. There have been multiple accidents, or almost accidents and accidents in this area, and if we had a four-way stop, it could have been prevented. Lastly, this is definitely a scary intersection and crossing that street with kids especially, by Stephanie Reynolds. So in closing, I feel like it might be a pretty small decision for you guys, but it's really important to our neighborhood, really important to our family, really important to me, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wanted to speak? Yes, sir. If I can have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes, and then fill out one of those forms when you're done.
Dustin Reynolds. My address is 912 Northwest 196.
Already got one.
You got it in there. So I live in the enclave gated community there in the blue. So we live within a few hundred yards of this intersection, and over the last year, I noticed how dangerous this intersection is. Our neighborhood pool, park, and clubhouse are located on the northeast corner of the northeast corner, and children frequently walk over to the pool in the summer. A lot of families move to this neighborhood because of how kid-friendly it is and take advantage of the pool during the summer and the park and clubhouse all year round. My kids even go to the tire swing that's across the street from that as well. Cars frequently speed past this area coming from the Stonebriar Lane entrance, as it is a longer stretch of road. Since there isn't really any way to enforce the posted speed limit, vehicles are consistently exceeding it as they pass by this junction. Kids are regularly biking and walking across this area, and although I teach my children to be traffic aware, there's bound to be an accident. Over the last couple years, our neighborhood has grown significantly, and with Tabor adding additional home sites to the northwest area of the neighborhood, there continues to be only 2 entrances from 192nd Street. Both these entrances come to a meet at this junction. We will continue to see more and more traffic, meaning the danger of a child being hit continues to rise. There have already been some close calls, and this 4-way stop would make sure that those close calls do not turn into a much worse case. Now, I don't know how many vehicles it takes. I know how much to pass the intersection to constitute the stop sign, but it only takes one to be involved in an accident with one of the many children in this neighborhood to make me regret not doing everything I can to make this 4-way stop a reality. We love our neighborhood, and we plan on living in this neighborhood for a long time. So making this neighborhood as safe as possible for our children, other families' children, and any future families moving in is a priority. Again, I thank you for the time. And hopefully we can do what's right for the children in Stonebriar and create a safe area around our most frequently crossed area. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5D? All right, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. One of the things you've heard consistently is that that the intersection apparently needs some form of traffic control. They've got a neighborhood petition in support of it. Although analysis of the intersection based on the city's all-way stop criteria found that, currently the city's criteria is to have at least 2,500 vehicles per day entering the intersection. This intersection is running in the neighborhood of 1,500 vehicles per day. The one thing about the 1,500, though, is that the minor street volume is about 80% of the major streets. So even though it doesn't have the 2,500, the amount of traffic on the cross streets is about balanced. With respect to existing safety conditions, there aren't any view obstructions present at the intersection. So based on the existing criteria for using all-way stop control, staff doesn't have cause to recommend the use of that level of control at this intersection. However, action on this matter is going to be at the discretion of the commission. Happy to answer any questions you might have on the application.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve this request. Normally I don't when the speed is involved in the installation of stop signs, because that's not what they're for. They're for assigning right of way. And most studies are going to prove that people that encounter stop signs, if they don't feel like they're needed, they're going to speed up. They're going to make up that time when they leave. They usually react to them about 100 feet before they see them and 100 feet after. But in this case, and I went out and looked at this location, your neighborhood and is like you said, it's contiguous, all one, and the two outlets on the 192nd, and the clubhouse and the way it worked, and I went through every approach. And I was a traffic engineer for the Department of Transportation. And when I look at it, and it's an idea, we have a program for speed abatement, and until we can get that highlighted, perfect example would have been a speed hump on Stonebriar maybe in advance of this location. But until that gets, I understand where you're coming from. You've done everything. You've doubled what we asked you to do in 2015, and I heard that request then. I was on this commission then, and you've doubled it. You went from 21% on the minor up to 44. So you've probably you're built out. You're not going to get any better than what it is, and this is what you have to live with. And you're asking for some help, and I'm going to give it to you today. I'm going to vote. I'm going to recommend that we approve this for those reasons.
All right, thank you, sir. So we have a motion to approve item 5D from Commissioner Miller. Do we have a second?
I would like to second, please.
We have a second by Commissioner Cornett. Do we have any talk on this item? Yes, sir.
If this is the appropriate time,
Yeah, that would be.
if this item were to be approved, I think it would be very beneficial on the boulevard side of Stonebriar, just prior to where that curve begins. Is it possible to put a sign up there that says stop ahead?
On new stop installations, especially in something like this, we typically will put an advanced stop ahead sign, because it is a significant traffic control change.
Could it be permanent?
They're up there for quite a long time, so it's
Okay.
pretty close to permanent.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, could I comment on that? Because I know what you're talking about. There's a clump, it's in this picture here, northbound, approaching around the curve. That landscaping material right there is going to play a big part on whether people see that stop sign. And I would suggest that you might look at doing something different there, or at least lowering it down somehow and do something, because that is going to interfere with, and that's going to be the ones that's coming into your neighborhood after work wanting to get home. So they're going to be wanting to speed before they hit that stop sign. Just a comment. Good. I'm glad you mentioned that, Commissioner Littlefield.
Yes, sir.
I just would like to express some concern I've got. Normally, I'm like Commissioner Miller, that I'm real hesitant about putting up stop signs where they shouldn't go. My biggest concern is you've got about half the drivers in your neighborhood that are willing to break the law. Keep that in mind, that they are going to be willing to break the law when it comes to that stop sign. And that's what concerns me the most, is if your kids are expecting that driver to stop and they don't, then that's whenever the problems occur. So, like I say, I know in my neighborhood, we face the same thing. We got some stop signs up that people just blow through. My neighbors graciously come and let me know about it because I'm on the traffic commission. But there's really, if they're willing to break the law, they're willing to break the law, whether it be the speed or the stop sign. So just be aware that this may not be the solution that you're looking for.
Okay, anybody else wanted to speak on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5D from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Cornett. Can we have your votes, please? Item has passed with all in favor. Okay. We go on now to item 5E. Heather Romeyer, to consider a traffic signal at the intersection of North Douglas Boulevard and East Memorial Road, north of Interstate Highway 44. We have anybody here to speak on this item? Hi, sir.
John Mashburn.
Okay, if I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes, sir.
Yes, sir. 14201 Edmund Lake Road, Jones, Oklahoma, 73049. I live in the housing addition, Edmund Lake Estates, that is the first road entering Memorial after you go west of this intersection. It's probably no more than 200 feet past that intersection. And we've had a lot of problems with speed coming from both directions. I know this is primarily addressing issues at that intersection, but it will also assist us. That's a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit coming down Memorial 2-lane road. People use every bit of that 55 miles an hour or more. And the entrance to our addition is, number one, we have a blind side because of a curve from the intersection that's in question to going uphill to the entrance to our addition. From the other direction, we have a blind side because Memorial tops a pretty sharp hill just 100 feet or so west of our entrance. The top picture, the entrance to our addition, is right at the top curve of that picture, entering north from Memorial. So anything that would cause people to stop and think, we've had a number of both accidents and very near terrible accidents at the entry to our addition. We've had within this last year, we had a truck coming west through this intersection, going up the hill, lost control because of its speed, evidently, and drove into the entry to our addition, causing significant damage to our addition entryway. But also, we have, almost daily, people stopping, residents stopping, going east, stopping to turn into our addition, and we're all trained. We put on our signals and start slowing down before we top that hill, but we still have people come flying over that hill at 55 miles an hour, and they don't have room to stop when they're there. So, if they knew there was a light coming up, people travel through there, I think they'd be a little more hesitant. And then, of course, the westbound traffic from the intersection going up the hill just flies. Just flies through there, and from both Douglas and Memorial. So everyone that I've talked to, I think our whole homeowners association is strongly in favor of this signal.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Anybody else wanted to speak on this item, 5E? All right, staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. With respect to the intersection itself, based on the currently posted limits and observed traffic volumes, it doesn't meet any warrants, any of the MUTCD warrants for signalized control. Because the speed limit on Memorial Road is 55 miles an hour and the one on Douglas is 45, the intersection can be evaluated using reduced volume warrants, in which case they're reduced to 70% of what's typically required. Under this condition, it could meet one of the 9 warrants, which would be the 4-hour vehicular warrant. The intersection does not have a crash history sufficient to meet the MUTCD crash criteria of 5 collisions within the past 12 months. In 2020, there weren't any collisions recorded at the intersection, and there were no collisions recorded in the past 5 years in the period from 2016 through 2020. The manual states that traffic signals, even when justified by roadway conditions, can result in delay, disobedience of signal indications, increased use of less adequate routes to avoid the traffic signal, and/or significant increases in the frequency of collisions. At this time, based on only the criteria that allows reduced traffic volume warrants to be used at this intersection, it would meet one of the 9 warrants. Action will be at the discretion of the commission. Now, should the commission approve this item, we've got an illustration shown at the bottom of page 5, which shows that the intersection would need to be rechannelized within the limits of the existing pavement in order to accommodate a traffic signal. And the reason being is because the way this intersection is currently configured, eastbound Memorial Road is a free-flowing movement. It's not controlled in any way, shape, or form. If you are eastbound on Memorial Road, continuing to the east, you're not subject to any control. The current control right now is for people entering from Douglas Boulevard and also those that are headed westbound on Memorial Road, because they're required to head to the north before they can make a left turn, where they come to that point where Douglas Boulevard and Memorial Road meet. It's an awkward intersection. Sometimes it's challenging to understand how it works. Other than that, action will be at the discretion of the commission. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the request.
So you said eastbound, like on the bottom picture, right? That's eastbound, that truck gets to go free.
That's correct.
Coming west, is there a stop control before they pass that stop sign?
There is.
There is. Okay, so right now it's a three-way stop, if you want to call it, right?
It would be a two-way stop,
Well,
because people that are coming from Douglas Boulevard are required to stop, and those who are headed west on Memorial Road are also required to stop. It's eastbound Memorial Road has got a free-flow movement.
And on this picture, that bottom picture, the car that's coming towards us has to stop
Right.
also.
I think if, on page 5 of the staff report, there's an illustration showing how the intersection would need to be reconfigured if it was signalized.
Right. But right now, going westbound on Memorial, they pull off a little bit and they stop. And Douglas has a stop both ways.
That's correct.
Okay, so there's 3 stop signs.
Well,
Yeah.
there's just 2 stop signs, but yes.
This car stops, this car stops.
Yeah, Douglas
this car
Boulevard
stops.
stopped, eastbound Memorial Road has to come this direction and stop.
Stop.
But eastbound Memorial Road never stops.
But if they go on to Douglas,
They don't.
there's a stop.
Yes, okay, you're correct, yes.
Okay, no.
So
So right now, there's
It's an
3
odd
stop
mix.
signs with 1 free flow. Okay,
that's correct.
okay, I think I got it. Okay, so we've had staff input, so we need a motion for item 5E.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for staff. It looks to me like this intersection needs to be reconfigured before anything, I mean, regardless. And is there any way that can be reconfigured before we even think about signalization? I mean, a 4-hour warrant out here in the rural, that's not going to be very efficient. But I do agree that there needs to be some geometric changes to this intersection. Is that within the purview of this commission to recommend that before? I mean, we've had that come up before where we needed just left turn lanes installed, would solve a lot of problems instead of signals. And here's one where an intersection modification project would certainly solve some of this problem.
Well, I think it's certainly within the realm of the commission to recommend geometric changes at the intersection. The illustration shown on page 5 shows that everything to reconfigure the geometry of the intersection, it can all be done within the existing limits of paving right now. It would take some striping and it'd also probably take a little bit of pavement removal just to reinforce the case. There's a triangular shaped gore area on Memorial Road, and in the past, if you were to be out there and look at it, you can see there's a lot of evidence of people that have just opted to, when they were making a left turn, say they were westbound on Memorial Road, a lot of times they will cut the corner and they will just drive straight through the gore area and somewhat bypass the stop control that's placed there for them. It's a challenging intersection to manage the way it's currently configured.
But going off what he's saying, could the picture there on page 5 be done now without a stoplight for a minimal cost of just painting and striping? And then that would allow East Memorial, both eastbound and westbound, to have free flow traffic, and there would only be 1 stop sign, and that would be from Douglas.
It would be possible to reconfigure it like that.
Yeah.
And I think that what we'd do is we'd bring back a supplemental case
Yes.
to remove stop control on one of the legs of Memorial Road. Actually, both legs on Memorial Road.
Sir, if you could come back up to the microphone, do you understand what we're kind of saying? That
Yes.
if we restripe that whole intersection the way it shows on page 5, now you only have 1 stop control, and everybody going on to Douglas, or everybody coming off of Douglas, stops and then can either go left or right. You just don't have, you just don't have signal lights.
Yeah, I certainly think the striping would be beneficial, but my concern is that I believe a lot of the high-speed traffic is the traffic coming west on Memorial that doesn't have to do anything right now. If I'm reading, if I remember right, I don't think there's any control for yeah. So the traffic, this is looking east. The traffic coming from Memorial, seen on the right there at the bottom picture, I don't know that that has a stop sign.
No, that one is a free flow, is
Yeah,
what
and,
they have
and
said.
our concern, I mean, we do have residents that enter and exit that way, but the vast majority of them enter and exit from the other from west. But our concern is just the number of times that people are just flying through there without slowing down to going 55. And either we can't enter Memorial because of the speed of people, or it's just, risky, seems like every time, because they're just flying through that intersection without slowing down at all.
And then, did you guys do a line of sight on this intersection?
Yes, we did. That should appear on the first page in the summary. Actually, no, we've got, actually it's on page 2, we've got, we talk about the available decision sight distance. The biggest thing that's affecting sight distance at this intersection is the skewed nature of the intersection, and the fact that the Turner Turnpike Bridge over Douglas or over Memorial Road obstructs view, and it makes it difficult to see. That's one of the reasons why the revised intersection geometry was proposed, because it places drivers in a better position to see traffic that's approaching on Memorial Road coming out from underneath the Turnpike Bridge. I believe the intersection that this resident is speaking about is further to the west, and it's not related to this intersection. It's considerably west. However, an issue that it sounds like it's coming into play is the fact that Memorial Road has got a 55-mile-an-hour posted speed limit.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, are we ready to move on? Does anybody else have any questions for staff or anything? Okay, so we need a motion concerning item 5E.
I make a motion to disapprove what's being presented and look at maybe doing an intersection modification. Then you don't have to do it anyway to make the signal. So, and then it might solve more than you think. So if I can word it that way.
Okay, so we have a motion to disapprove item 5E from Commissioner Miller. Do we have a second?
Second, Varnell.
Second by Commissioner Varnell. Okay, do we have any talk from up here?
I have a question
Yes,
on
ma'am.
when, if we do modify it to look like this without any signal modification, there are stop bars. Would there be stop signs where those stop bars are in all 3 locations? Or are we saying Memorial gets free reign to go around that curve and the only stop control is Douglas?
The way this is configured and illustrated right here, it shows that there are stops all the way around. So if something like this was to come through, we would come back with just a supplemental item when the intersection's reconfigured and make it an all-way stop.
Okay.
Because like I said, right now you've got one free flow movement and everything else is being
Right.
regulated
And
by stops.
Right, okay.
And if you're saying always stop, so that's something, so if you come back up, one of the things the staff's saying is if they restripe that whole intersection, they would create an all-way stop. And
That would certainly
instead
be
of
preferable to
signal,
what we have now.
instead of signal, and that's where Commissioner Miller is saying so rural with limited traffic and no warrants, to put a signal light is something that's not normal.
I understand.
But to do an all-way stop in Oklahoma rural is normal. Okay.
I certainly think it'd be preferable to what it is now. You're talking about both reconfiguring it, striping it, and putting all-way stops?
All 3, both the east and westbound, and then coming off of Douglas.
I certainly think the residents of my addition would be in favor of that.
Okay, and so that would be a recommendation from the Traffic Commission to the staff to talk to Public Works to see if something can be engineered and done up. Is that true, staff?
I'll visit with the Public Works Director after this with your recommendations, but what we will do is we'll bring back a housekeeping item just to add that eastbound stop on Memorial Road, because like I said, right now, well, to reconfigure the intersection, it would be needed because otherwise the only authorized controls are stops in 2 directions, and that would violate driver expectation,
Right.
kind of create a safety hazard.
Okay?
So we'll bring back a housekeeping item at the December meeting for you.
If you decide to do this.
Correct.
Right, okay. All right, so any other talk on item 5E? We have a motion to disapprove item 5E from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Varnell. Can we have your votes, please? This is to disapprove. My fault. Okay, item to disapprove has passed. All in favor of the disapproval? All right. So now we go on to item 5F, Troy Atkinson, all-way stop control at Summer Grove Avenue and Camborne Avenue. And do we have somebody speak on this? So if I can have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Troy Atkinson. I live at 18417 Summer Grove Avenue. Right now, we have a yield sign coming from Camborne, but I live next to one of the major the treehouse park in our neighborhood. That, as you can see in that picture on 10, it also has a trail that goes throughout the neighborhood. The grove is almost completely covering this mile section. It is grown up so big. A lot of the kids and families use this playground. One of that Summer Grove actually does a loop all the way through the neighborhood. That's just a quarter of our neighborhood, but it actually goes a loop, and there's not one stop sign at all anywhere in our neighborhood. And I just feel that this being next to the park warrants something like that. There's a lot of foot traffic, a lot of kids will go to that park. There's a fishing pond back behind there on the trail. People use the trails. On 16, Mary. A lot of people that live on Camborne that signed my petition, their issue, which this is a little skewed a little bit, they have a hard time seeing, that's northbound. They have a hard time seeing any vehicles come from northbound, so they don't feel like they can see traffic until they're actually more in the street. But knowing if there was a stop sign there, that possibly, they won't pull out in front of somebody. And another major thing too is that is actually a bus stop for many of the kids in our neighborhood. That's where a lot of kids go to get on the bus in the morning, get off the bus, and walk home. So I feel that would be a good place to have a all-way stop right next to that park.
All right, sir, thank you very much. Do you have anybody else that wants to speak on item 5F? Staff?
All right, you've got our comments before you. In this particular instance, there's about 1,238 vehicles per day entering on Summer Grove, and on Camborne, there's about 129 vehicles per day. So with respect to this intersection meeting the city's criteria for a 3-way intersection going to all-way stop control, it does not have the combined volume necessary, and the minor street is only about 10% the volume of the major. The intersection doesn't meet any of the city's all-way stop control criteria, and it doesn't meet any of those criteria listed in the manual and uniform traffic control devices. So action on this item is going to be at the discretion of the commission. I will note one thing, that the residents at 18417 Summer Grove Avenue will have its driveway within the middle of an all-way stop controlled intersection. So for that resident, and I believe it's the applicant, it will be at times accessing the intersection may be a little bit challenging, but it affects one resident. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on the application.
And then also, no parking within 30 feet of a stop sign, is that
Yes,
also?
that is standard. So
Right.
typically it's not posted, so it can affect how people park within an area. This residence wouldn't be affected anyway because You know, you can't park within the physical limits of an intersection, and the entire frontage of the house shown on the bottom of this view is entirely within the limits of the intersection as
Right,
it
but,
exists.
but as far as on the bottom picture,
Right.
if that turns into a stop sign 30 feet before it,
That'd be
people can't
correct.
park.
Right.
And then the top picture, if the stop sign goes there right by that mailbox, 30 feet towards us can't also.
That's correct.
Which would be in front of that house.
Right.
They just wouldn't be able to have anybody park there.
Right.
Okay, is that fine, sir? Does everybody kind of know that in that area?
They all aware of all of that, they all
Okay,
understand the situation.
okay. All right, so do we have a motion concerning item 5F?
I'll make a motion to deny the request.
We have a motion to disapprove item 5F from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second? You'll second that? Okay, so we have a second by Commissioner Miller. Can I have your, any talk on this item? Yes, sir.
I understand your concern, I really do. And this is something that's in my own neighborhood, in our HOA. We deal with it. As a matter of fact, we're in the process of taking some stop signs down because they are so ignored that it's more of a risk to have them there than to have them and have them being ignored. So I understand where you're coming from, but it's really not going to help on the speeding. From the pictures, it looks like that you've got sidewalks in the neighborhood for your pedestrians and your possibly cyclists, but like I say, it's just, I've just got some concerns putting stop signs where, according to our standards, they don't go.
With being next to a park has no issue with that for foot pedestrian or anything like that. That's our major concern is the pedestrian crossing. The kids play there. They come all over the place to play there. It's the biggest park in our neighborhood, and it gets used a lot. I mean, there's the foot traffic is. I live there. I'm in the house in that intersection. I see it all the time. So, thank you.
Okay, anybody else wanted to? Yes, sir.
I think the proximity to that neighborhood park has a significant bearing on the merit of a stop sign here. I think it's, you know, if we were looking at this in the middle of a neighborhood where it's all residential properties, I might support Commissioner's Hale on the denial here, but I think the proximity to that park, the fact that all the kids and all the people that live on the other side of the street from the park, yes, the sidewalks are there, but they have to cross that street to get to that sidewalk on the other side. So from that point of view, I'm in support of this application.
Okay, anybody else wanted to talk about item 5F?
I agree with Littlefield, and then also to mirror what Commissioner Barnell loves to say, is that you have community support, like your entire neighborhood that's around this intersection is in support of this, and I think that that's most, I think that speaks to it as well.
Okay, anybody else wanted to speak?
I just want to make mention of the difference in the volumes on the two streets now. You got some road user interest in this also, the people that like to get up and down the road, you know, and when we put in unwarranted stop signs, we interfere with that road user. They're never here to speak on their behalf. It's always the one wanting the item. So we have to consider that for them, and that's what I'm doing.
Yes, sir.
I was curious if maybe a pedestrian crossing, you know, with hatched mark would help kind of satisfy the need to get people across the street. Is that a possibility, or?
Well, a crossing can always be marked. I mean, this is crosswalks at an intersection are not uncommon. I don't know offhand if this location has got ADA compliant. It appears that it may already have adequate ADA ramps all the way around, in which case striping a crosswalk to heighten, driver awareness of potential pedestrian activity, and providing pedestrian crossing warning signs is certainly something that can be done.
But if you have that crossing on a street that has zero control, it doesn't have a yield sign, it doesn't have a stop sign, it doesn't have anything, then pretty much we're just putting down paint. We don't have, like, we're not actually slowing any kind of traffic. We're not forcing anybody to stop there either. Something to consider.
Yeah, I just don't know if you can, if we had one of the pictures, which when you're coming from here to here,
On page 10 of the application?
page 10.
10.
So where the yield sign is right now, it's probably where you would want to put something. There's really no place to hook it up to. It goes straight to a driveway.
Yeah, just to the north of where the yield sign is, there
It is.
yeah,
Okay, okay.
there are wheelchair ramps, so that particular location, we could have pedestrian crossing signs installed.
There you go. And then mark it. That might be something to help.
What's that?
Just north of you, I believe, there's a sidewalk entrance to the road and a sidewalk entrance to the road where they could stripe a crosswalk and also put signs up saying crosswalk. All right, so any other talk on item 5F? Okay, we have a motion to, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes, sir.
I don't mean to belabor it, but it also looks to me on the other side, going away from the park, there's ADA accessibility crossing on the sidewalk there as well. Did I miss that? Inside the yellow circle?
There's ADA
Yes,
ramps on all sides of that whole intersection is ADA.
There is, even on the left side of the circle. It appears possible.
Yeah, if the crossings are fully accessible, then we can have everything striped. Typically, striping like that is not done within neighborhoods because there are just, due to the sheer number of intersections that you would have to mark and maintain. And within a residential environment, pedestrian activity is normal and it's expected. But we can do
But
that
there
to
is a
heighten
park.
awareness. Yeah, we can do that to heighten awareness since it is close to a neighborhood park.
If the item, I'm not sure where we are on the motion.
No, we
It
have
was to
a
disapprove.
we have a motion from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Miller, to disapprove 5F.
If the item were approved, if your disapproval was disapproved, I get confused on this, and the stop signs were to go in, where would the stop signs be located in relationship with where these crosswalks are?
Good question.
Well, typically, the stop signs would be located closer to the intersection. But in this particular case, it may be located ahead of the crossing. However, where most people will come to a stop would probably be over top of the crosswalk. Because they'd want to be in a position where they can stop and then see what's approaching on the side streets. If you were to, say you were northbound on Summer Grove Avenue approaching Camborne, if you were to stop where the existing pedestrian crossing, where the two ramps line up, you'd never be able to see what was approaching on the side street. It'd be totally invisible because you'd never be able to, because the house and its fence along the south side of Camborne would completely obstruct your view.
All set? Anybody else have anything on 5F? Okay, we have a motion to disapprove item 5F from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Can we have your votes, please? Who are you waiting for? Got it. Okay, the item has been disapproved, 5 to disapprove, 3 against it. Okay? And we do have a recommendation to the staff to go out there and look at marking the crosswalks and signing, which would maybe help slowing things down.
And we'll do that on every approach where there's ADA accessible ramps.
All right. We go on now to item 5G, Marnie Bowen, all-way stop control at the intersection of Hatterley Lane and Northwest 154th Terrace. Do we have anybody here to speak on this item? Yes, sir. If I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Brian Michael. I live at 6209 Northwest 154th Terrace.
Okay, sir, when you're done talking, if you could fill out one of these for us, please.
Yeah, sure will.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. I live there right by the intersection in question. We asked for some guidance on traffic control there. It's an uncontrolled intersection currently with no signage posted. We're asking for a 4-way stop there just for from a safety element. We've got a lot of our neighborhood that walks through there, a lot of kids that play on that street, those types of things. We do have additional traffic coming from a neighborhood that's being developed to the west there on 154th. It continues up into another neighborhood. Because of the layout of that neighborhood, most of the traffic coming out of that neighborhood is coming down 154th, when I think it was originally intended to go out on Rockwell. But there's lots of twists and turns in that neighborhood, and it really forces that traffic, especially the eastern part of that neighborhood, to come down 154th. And so that, combined with the traffic that we get out of the northbound part of our neighborhood, creates quite a bit of traffic there in that intersection. I'd say we'll also have a lot of traffic as the southern part of that neighborhood continues to fill out, which would, that's a lot of the reason why we want that 4-way stop there, just from a safety concern and the traffic control standpoint. And that's all I've got. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5G? And sir, if you could fill out the form when you're done. Ma'am, if I could have your name, address, you'll have up to 5 minutes, and then fill one of these out when you're
Do
done.
I fill that out after I called? Yes. Yeah. Okay, I'm Heather Michael, and I just can't let him have the last word. I had to add to what Brian had to say. First of all, we brought our girls here today to see government in action, and I really appreciate you all because I had no idea what went into the decision-making behind stop signs. I've been like, what's the big deal? Just put up a stop sign. Like, it's just a stop sign in this neighborhood. It's not like I'm asking for one on Memorial Road, right? But I haven't seen any of this because another neighbor, Marnie, was the one that filled this out and probably got your communication. So I don't know what the traffic studies show. I know they put those things up, but since they connected that neighborhood, it has just blown up as far as how many cars are going up and down 154th Terrace. And our kids are just not old enough to play outside, and I now won't let them go outside without us because we've got construction traffic, we've got all of the neighbors in the new neighborhood, plus our neighborhood using that street. So I would appreciate your consideration. I appreciate your time and what you do all the time. I'm amazed at how much effort goes into this. I had no idea, so thank you. All of you, I'm impressed, so thanks.
All right, thank you, ma'am. If you could fill out the form.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody else wanted to speak on item 5G? Staff?
Okay, like the previous item, this particular intersection does not meet any of the city's criteria for all-way stop control. There's no collisions reported from 2016 through 2020. There aren't any mitigating circumstances like a reduced decision site distance. The applicant did provide a petition that was signed by 22 residents in support of the request. One thing that I will note that on page 7 of the application, you will see that this particular road, Northwest 154th Terrace, is actually a street that links two different subdivisions. There's the Northbrook addition on the west and the Deer Creek Village addition on the east. So this is, Unlike the last application, the one thing that makes this a little bit unique is that this particular all-way stop controlled intersection is a linking road between two different additions. The volumes on it don't meet any of the city's current criteria, and the traffic is not currently balanced in order to justify the use of all-way stop control. So action will be at the discretion of the commission. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on the application.
All right, thank you, staff. We have a motion concerning item 5G.
I move approval.
We have a motion to approve item 5G from Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Commissioner Cornett. Do we have any discussion?
I typically would like to see, as Mrs. Cornett pointed out a minute ago, to see more neighborhood involvement and HOA presidents and those type of things, but I do understand how new this neighborhood is. I drove through this intersection on the way home from my friend's house in Montague Addition, which is just to the north, on Saturday after the OU game, and just to check it out. And there is not a lot of houses around there, but they're going up as fast as they can build them. And I didn't even realize that the Northbrook addition to the west was connecting in there. I didn't even look down that way. And because of that is why I will forego the neighborhood involvement this time and support this.
Well, this is a great example of what happens here in Oklahoma, is a housing area gets built, and the roads are built for the housing area, and then all of a sudden, another housing area is built, and they connect, and a normal neighborhood street now becomes a feeder street. And we've had that happen so many times, especially with the older neighborhoods, and then a newer one comes in down the road, and everybody going to the newer neighborhood just uses that old neighborhood as a bypass. And we've seen probably hundreds of stop sign requests just for that reason. The fact that this intersection has no stop control is something that's shocking. I was at least looking for some yield signs on the feeder street, but there was nothing. So it's first come, first serve, So it's just an example of what happens here in Oklahoma, especially when they add in a rear exit. And now, just like he said, they all thought it was going to go out to the west. All that traffic from that other addition was going to go west. Well, then they hook into this one, and half of that housing area says it's easier to go through, and that creates the problem at that intersection. So, yeah, that's what we have to work with as growth happens.
I want to point out something else too, it's not noted on the map there, but on the far left of that picture, that's a school, which just means there's going to be a lot more traffic going through all the way from Rockwell into that neighborhood because of the school too. It's an elementary school, middle school, elementary school.
Okay, yes, sir.
I normally would oppose this, but due to, I don't see any sidewalks in the neighborhood, is that correct? So basically, your pedestrian traffic is going to be on the street. So I think that would add to the circumstance for approving this.
Okay, anybody else wanting to speak on item 5G? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5G from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Cornett. And we'll be able to vote here in, let's see, there it is. It was my fault.
Yes. Mine's not up.
Okay, item 5G has passed. All in favor? Okay, we go on now to comments from citizens. Besides a briefing that we're going to get later, is anybody else wanting to speak to the Traffic Commission? We're going to get a presentation about the bikes. But besides that, anybody else wanted to speak? No? Okay. We'll go on to reports and items from the traffic commissioners. We'll go to Commissioner Varnell,
None this week, thank you.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Quickly, coming down here, I went past, what is that, Northwest 16th and near the Homeland there, that little diagonal, and I really like what I'm seeing is happening as an alternative. I think it's a much safer environment for those bicycles.
We go to Commissioner Russell,
Nothing today.
Commissioner Hale,
Nothing today, thank you.
Commissioner Schuline, Commissioner Miller.
I'd like the staff to report on the status of the signalization timing program that's going on, hopefully up north. Optimizing signal timing, checking it for, putting the current timing in for the current traffic patterns.
Right. I believe the city's got a consultant retained to do that work, but I'm not aware that they've actually collected data to start working on it. But there are a list of about 8 corridors, I believe, that are encompassing a number of different intersections that are going to be looked at. Because it is time to periodically review how they operate.
And Stuart, what is the city's specifications for detection now? Are we still doing loops? Are we still doing radar? Are we doing video detection? I know you're trying to get away from wire as much as possible, but how much is still out there?
Well, the city's current standard for detection is to use radar.
Radar.
And as far as a percentage switchover between radar and loops, I mean, we're still predominantly loops, but as new signals go in, they're going equipped with radar. As intersections are modified, they're converted to radar.
To radar.
Right. So it's a progressive thing, but when you've got close to 800 traffic signals out there, it's something that takes considerable amount of time and effort to change out.
The radar is much more reliable than.
Well, it's more reliable and it is more versatile because it doesn't go down when you've got, during construction, we don't lose any detection. I mean, the detection fields may need to be adjusted, but that can be done using software as opposed to using a pre-timed pattern in the event that you lose your loops for detection.
Well, they're just some that seem like they ought to be operating 8 phases instead of, offsets and maybe one direction with left turns go before the other. You get comments from people, and if you ever get a chance, check Marble Leaf again. God, I get enough of that.
Marble Leaf in 150th? Okay.
All right, Commissioner Cornett.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I actually heard from Stuart this morning that a few of the leading pedestrian intervals, which we talked about a couple of months ago, so it changes the signal prioritization to let pedestrians get into the crosswalk before any of the lights turn green. Along 23rd Street, there are now 6 LPIs right there. And so it's getting better and better for pedestrians in core Oklahoma City right now. We have a few more to get through, but I really appreciate all the city's work in doing that.
Okay, and seeing as we're on you, staff, you want to give input on her concerns last month about Broadway, I believe it was?
Okay, on Broadway Avenue, approaching, I believe it's Wayman's Park, we've had service requests issued for advisory speed plaques to go up, advising drivers that are approaching the park that 25 miles an hour is a recommended limit. It does not change the regulatory limit, but it's a curve advisory speed that's been placed out there to just recommend to drivers that they need to reduce their speed as they're entering the curves.
Great.
So we will start with that and see what happens from there.
Okay. Nothing from cops. Counselor, you have anything, sir?
Nothing, sir, thank you.
Okay. Staff, do you have anything else?
Nothing further. You've got our standard report on administrative signs that were installed. And this month, we will have a presentation on Bike Walk OKC, and I believe that this is in response to interest from the commission on status of the program, public involvement, and that sort of thing. So we've got Max Harris from Planning Director Jeff Butler, and Public Works Director Eric Winger, who will be able to present information on it for you.
Okay, so let's just wait a second. Anybody else have anything else for the Traffic Commission as we get into this? All right, it's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners, for having me today. My name is Max Harris. I am an associate planner with the Transportation Planning Program in the Planning Department. And so this comes as a plan update for Bike Walk OKC, and it's a little bit of a refresher for you all. Back in April, my former supervisor, Lakeisha Dunbar, made a presentation. And this is largely very similar to that one, and just an update status here. So, so I'm going to go over why the plan was created, what is in the plan, and why we're updating the plan, and relationship with TTC and the plan as well. So, so why the plan? This plan incorporates and supersedes some previous plans leading up to it. This is the first citywide bike and pedestrian master plan for Oklahoma City. It follows the Trails Master Plan, which is kind of the 1997, in coordination with MAPS program starting. That's where the Trails Master Plan came from, and then a bicycle transportation plan in 2008, and a MAPS 3 sidewalk plan as well. So this kind of supersedes all of those, but incorporates them as well. So there are some overarching main goals of the plan. So to get more people out biking and walking, greater numbers of people walking and biking for leisure exercise and transportation purposes, and to make walking and biking safe in Oklahoma City, to increase connectivity, connect people to jobs, transit, districts, schools, parks, and to remove major barriers to walking and cycling. So a couple of the big things are rivers and interstates, but smaller barriers and maybe more mental barriers maybe as well. There are lots of different kinds of barriers. So, so what's in the plan? Largely a network proposal for bike network, trail network, and where to prioritize sidewalk and other pedestrian facilities as well. So that all of that kind of in a citywide approach was proposed in this plan. And then there was a lot of technical analysis to kind of get there. The plan was adopted in 2018, so there were years of really diving into data, like collision data. On the right is results of a PEAT analysis. It stands for Pedestrian Environmental Assessment Tool that we work with the UCO class almost every semester and have students go on the ground and survey for us. And so really is from heavy data sets to on the ground trying to survey, really lots of different ways of collecting data and creating ways for us to analyze in different ways as well. So. And prioritization processes is something that's really heavily relied on for different funding sources for prioritizing projects. So that plays a big part in the plan too, especially when we're looking at a citywide plan. Where is a sidewalk or a bike facility going to have the most impact and do the most good? So there's a whole process behind that as well. So that's good, thanks. And then at the end, there's an action plan, and the action plan is more policy, code, standards, and where we can kind of make improvements, where we need to make improvements to progress in walkability and bikeability in the city. So if you hit the thing, yeah, so I kind of call out a couple things here, and one is, improving project, when we making projects improvements, let's make sure that vehicular traffic does not negatively impact walkability or bikeability, and level of service goals to include improving bike and ped facilities. So there's just kind of a couple to point out. And then if you hit that one more time, I think there's a system updates. There's a couple more categories of the action plan, and one of them is systems. So actually called out here is the LPI, the leading pedestrian interval and to upgrade traffic signals to detect cyclists. Because if you've ever been on the street on your bike, then you might know that signals don't, may not detect you. And so when we upgrade to radar, we actually do get that detection. So why the plan update? Why are we updating the plan? Well, one is just a timeline in the plan. If I hit that one more time, thank you. We are on year 3 of the plan. It was adopted in 2018. So in the general timeline, we want to see a small update now, and then in a couple of years, we might do a bigger, more full plan update. And I'll explain what the update consists of here in a second too. But it's just kind of a general timeline we want to try to follow. Go to the next. And another reason is because we've had so many funding opportunities between 2017 bond, the sales tax initiative between MAPS 3 and 4, the Better Street sales tax, and a lot of federal grants, of course MAPS 3, provide a lot of funding for projects that are in Bike Walk OKC. So this plan update will, is necessary for us to get new, prioritization processes and projects shovel ready. And then of course MAPS 4 is coming up. So this is, there is definitely a time component of making sure that we have all the updates we need to the plan so we can really start preparing for projects for MAPS 4. And I should also add, the next bond is not too far in the distance, especially for preparing for it. And in the meantime, too, there's been a new infrastructure bill by the federal government, and we have a lot of opportunities to apply for grants for these type of projects, too. So. And so, like I mentioned, lots of facilities, new bike and ped facilities and trails were built, and so, another reason to keep the momentum here. And funding opportunities, this is just another way of looking at it, broken down by project type. So lots on sidewalks, and then bike trail, and also street enhancements, which are more of streetscape type of projects. And so another reason, too, why we're updating is that we receive a lot of requests for bike facilities, for sidewalks mostly, and safe crossings and stuff as well. So between residents' requests, we also get, requests from elected officials, council members, and appointed officials. And for this project, for this plan update, we also have an advisory group, and an exercise we did with the advisory group is to have them do their own series of surveys, worksheets kind of to, tell us what they're seeing and what their recommendations would be as well. So this is just kind of it's a little bit of a spaghetti map for us to make the point that we have a lot of requests, and we want to try to incorporate those as much as we can in the update. And then we are wanting to create a new category called Safe Crossings and Safe Corridors. And I know that you all have experienced a lot of requests for these as well, but the idea is kind of like this example on Northwest 23rd Street in Uptown, which are places where we do see a lot of pedestrian traffic, or they're just generally unsafe conditions for people to cross. And so this is a way to categorize, to have that in its own bucket, and to try to create a prioritization method for streets, for corridors that are unsafe, or for crossings that we need to make more safe. So how the plan is used, this is just a general chart for sort of how the sausage is made from planning phase to actual on-the-ground implementation. And this is just an example of projects, just to make a finer point about, we've been able to cross off bike projects in this case that have been funded, and you'll notice that it's not totally just down the line of priority, and that's for a couple different reasons. One is, whatever board oversees the projects may have, use Bike Walk as a guide, but may, want to see a slight change in the prioritization. And two is that sometimes we have opportunities, like for instance, a resurfacing project with, a bike facility proposed in the plan, and so there might be a funding opportunity that we might want to take advantage of. And so that might be another reason why we veer a little bit from the direct ranking there. So and this is just another example. This is actually phase 2 of pedestrian priority areas. So what you don't see is phase 1, that's mostly funded. And so Bike Walk has in place the next phase of projects. So we're definitely going to try to keep this in place and then try to add on or change where necessary in the plan update. And so this next section, this last section, is just interaction with Traffic and Transportation Commission and what you all might see or things that are certainly pertinent to you all as a body. And so just right off the bat, Bike Walk is used as a guide for all these different departments. We really created it as sort of an overarching guide in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different interdepartmental and interagency, I should even say, guidance. So this is just a list of things that you might see that would probably need to go to Traffic Commission. So a big one, which I'll talk about in a few more slides here, is parking, on-street parking. Every time there's a change to on-street parking, we would certainly need to take it to Traffic Commission. Angled parking, there's a lot of angled parking out there that wasn't necessarily in compliance or ever really approved, and it just kind of, there's a lot of scenarios we come across that, that have to be dealt with in a way that's very situational, right? So, and so just a couple of examples, or a few examples here that you probably already know about, and maybe a couple you haven't seen yet. One is 39th Street Enhancement, which, as you might be aware, is our project where we kind of piloted this reverse angled parking and looked for a way to accommodate cyclists as well, with the bike lanes going away with that. So reverse angled parking is sort of one of those things that there was political will and community will to do, and so we're trying it out here. So, wouldn't mind going?
So,
And
sir,
yes,
is that actually done now? That reverse angle parking?
the project status, I don't think is it complete now?
No.
Looking at November.
The end of this month, it'll be done.
It's getting close. Yeah.
So it's close to being able to be used, so we
Looks
can
good.
start. Okay.
Yeah, so that was certainly a project where there was a lot of involvement with, the council member, the community, the business district, and they're a business improvement district. So there was a lot of voices in there, and a lot of discussions to be had. So 10th and Vermont is another example that would come to Traffic Commission, and it's a mid-block crossing, just kind of you've probably seen it, just kind of an example of a situation where we have pretty dense apartment development on the south and a grocery store on the north, and so there really was a need for this, and we had funding for it, and so that's an example too that might go in the safe crossings category and would be prioritized accordingly. And so bike projects, General Pershing and Main Street Bike Project was a really interesting project to kind of kick off, with protected bike lanes, because it has 3 different phases, and phase 1 and 3 on the 2 bookends are complete. Phase 1 and 2 are complete, and then phase 3 in the middle is where we really get into a business district. We get into on-street parking, and we have to make some design decisions So I will get to this in public engagement slide kind of at the bottom, but I just wanted to point this out. The next two slides just kind of show general Pershing. This is actually completed. And then this is Main Street, the proposed design, which has not been completed yet and will need to go to Traffic Commission. And another very similar example is Lottie Avenue, North Lottie Avenue from Northeast 4th to Northeast 23rd. And that is definitely another example where about half of that is already no parking allowed, and then the north half from 13th to 23rd is parking, on-street parking is allowed, and we're not disallowing it, but we are upgrading, we're restriping the parking, or we are striping the parking and striping them up to standards, so we do feel that's important. Also, if you'll notice, it's it will be our first parking protected bike lane, which was something that was asked about by the sales tax board that oversees this project from the Ward 7 board member. So we felt that we could accommodate this here, and that, again, like the reverse angle parking, this would be another sort of pilot project that we could go ahead and stripe in and you know, and kind of work with it. So I think this example was shown last time, but this is an example of where you have angled parking in front of a development, and we have a bike and sidewalk project. And angled parking is not ideal when you have a bike facility behind it, although it's better if it's a shared, you know, facility than if it's a bike lane behind angled parking, because then you have nowhere to go, really. So in this case, it wasn't too detrimental, but it does block the ADA sidewalk path. So I think this was if I recall right, I think this was a success story where the developer was willing to work with us there. So this is another developer type of project that may not come to Traffic Commission, but is certainly, we feel, you know, an important for us to get right, which is on 4th and Chartale, there's an affordable housing development. And we have bike lanes on Chartale and bike lanes on 4th coming in. So making sure that we can work with them on their design of parking and the site design of the development, plus making sure that we can get our protected bike lanes in Chartale and the bike lanes on 4th Street that accommodate parking. And so there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, but just trying to make sure we get it right on the front end so we don't have to, you know, go back later. And so I know public engagement has been a topic, and it's certainly something that we've, you know, needed to address as we go through these projects. And so there are a few different scenarios or a few different ways to engage that I have listed out here. And some of them depend on the type of bike project, but like I mentioned, if there is a change in parking, then we definitely need to petition and really go door to door along the bike route, and, you know, actually explain to people what's going on and get their signature for or against. And then what we also did with Main Street and what we're doing with Lottie now is we made postcards that have information on it. They have a link to a web page that we created for the project. And they will also lead you to a survey or a comment form, so you can go in and write your thoughts about it as well. So the website, there's a snip there of it, but it basically is on okc.gov, and it's a web page that shows all of our funded bike projects, and then from there you can go in to the projects that you're concerned about or that you just want to know more about, and it'll have maps and images and plan set block by block, so you can see exactly what's happening on your block. So we really, this is sort of a multifaceted approach. We wanted to try to get public engagement, not just face-to-face, but also on a web page and where people can go home and read about it, and also give us their thoughts, and that we can try to incorporate that into whatever design that we come up with. So. That's my last slide, and I just wanted to kind of open it up and see if there was any questions or open discussion about it. I'm happy to answer. Thanks.
I'm waiting for these folks. You guys are the ones that had some questions too, you know.
I have a question. What does the walk back program do to the Plan OKC classifications of all the roadways now? I mean, some of these you've changed, obviously changed the, reduced the lanes and things like this. What has that done to that, and how does that affect future funding for those roads?
It's a good question. So just first off, Bike Walk OKC was called for through the Connect OKC chapter in Plan OKC. So this was a response to Plan OKC. But I think you're right that when we change the design of the street, we might be changing the classification of that street too. But there are various factors that determine what classification street typology that is. So just because we road diet doesn't necessarily mean that it would change that. For instance, if you don't see less cars per day on a street, then there would be probably no change in classification in classifying that street. So I think that's something that.
Well, I was more concerned about the level of service that the existing than pre and then post bike improvements.
Yeah. Jeff, you want to?
Yeah, Jeff Miller, Plan Director. Just going along with that, like Max said, the traffic levels don't often change. And when we did Bike Walk OKC, we considered the volumes and the speeds. And so I don't want to say every case, but nearly every case, if not every case, the facilities that are planned in Bike Walk OKC are consistent with what is already there in terms of traffic volume and speed. Now we, in the design process, sometimes recommendations will be made to maybe drop the speed 5 miles per hour if we feel like that would enhance safety, but they're typically minor changes. 59th Street, Southeast 59th Street is a good example. I think it's an arterial. It's going to stay an arterial. The reason that it was chosen as a bike facility was because the traffic counts, at least from Eastern going east, are pretty low for an arterial, and so there was plenty of room there to reduce it from a 4-lane to a 3-lane, still maintain the same level of service. And the same speed, same traffic volume could be accommodated. So right now we're just trying to make sure that we get the design details just right for a safe facility.
And a follow-up question, if I can. Have you done pre-construction collected traffic data? I mean, how many bicyclists? I mean, I hear this a lot. We got all these bike lanes. I never see any bicycles. Where are they at and where do they come out? People want to know that live in the suburbs.
Yeah, good question. So a couple parts to the answer. Sometimes, sometimes the cyclists, you'll see we have some commuting cyclists. A lot of times the lanes downtown are used a lot on kind of after hours when a lot of folks don't see, especially on weekends. So there's that part of the issue. And then the other part is until we get a basic network, we kind of need that for more cycling to be able to catch on. There are a lot of times people just don't feel safe cycling. When there is a facility, then they feel safer and they're more likely to use it. So we feel like there's kind of a critical threshold that we're working towards where we can get more people feeling comfortable riding. So I see it as a long-term project, and if we can use this kind of excess capacity on some of our streets to make this safe network, then it'll be a win-win. So part of it is like the old analogy, when we talk about, and some traffic engineers and planners joke about, you can, with the trying to cross the street, looking for warrants to cross the street. Well, a lot of times people aren't going to cross the street because they don't feel safe. Kind of like, you're not going to cross a river unless there's a bridge there, even though you want to. So it's kind of the same way with the bike facilities. A lot of people, we want it to feel safe for different users, not just those that are kind of the gung-ho speed riders that we see on some of our arterials. That's great, and they feel safe. In fact, the other day I took a photo of a group on Eastern which is our new Route 66 bike route. You know, there must have been 15 of them in a big group, and that's safe, highly visible. But we want it to be safe also for people who, even for children, people who are less comfortable, who can feel like, okay, there's plenty of visibility here, there's delineators, there's green paint, there's thick white stripes, and the traffic is moderate, so I feel safe.
Maintain all the striping that you do. It's a lot of signs and striping on the pavement. Is there plans for additional maintenance funds to maintain all of this as well as the surface itself? Because that seems to be something that people are concerned about now, is the condition of our streets. And then here we're going to do, I know, I've been under striping. I know what it takes to keep striping up. And a lot of this is a 80% striping, isn't it? To mark a bike lane. So how are you going to maintain it?
So Eric Winger, Public Works Director. So one of the things that we had to anticipate as we work Public Works very closely with planning is this year, as a part of the budget approved by the City Councils, we were approved for a bike lane maintenance crew. That crew's not fully hired today. We're having some hiring challenges, but we're funded for that crew. We're looking to have them engaged by the end of the year, but we have a crew capable of being able to go out and stand up delineators that are downed, to take care of missing striping. We're also working with the Utilities Department. They're already sweeping the bike lanes. They've also bought specialized equipment that you might have seen running on General Pershing or on South Walker Avenue that's a very narrow, it's about a 5-foot wide street sweeper that actually fits between the delineators and the curb. So I think you're going to find that multiple departments are assisting in that effort, but we are funding that through the general fund for future maintenance. We're finding that the bike lanes are challenging. So you heard several times during Max's presentation of pilot projects. And so as we work, whether it's a sidewalk, a bike, or a trail, we are trying out some new concepts. But once we prove out a concept, those do go into our new design standards for consultants to use, whether it be layout for parking, whether it be the width of a bike lane, where to put the green bike boxes, where to place the signage, how wide the stripes. But a lot of that has changed just in the last year as we've improved and found new improvements for safety. I don't think we're done with that. There's some other concepts that are coming forward that we want to experiment with too. But again, if they find that they're useful and helpful, I'm going to incorporate them into the design ideas. A lot of the things that are also being asked is a lot of the outreach, which Max also shared. And we're just simply, as you've heard, we're having to go sometimes door to door. We're also looking at the engineering very, very closely before we even make recommendations. So street capacities are things that I'm very concerned with as your Public Works Director. We're making sure that before we go in and remove a lane of traffic, that it will not have a loss of service on that street. So we're making sure that's the case. Bike Walk really went out and it showed a lot of new miles of a lot of new streets to be impacted. And again, they're not all fully funded. And so we're actually taking this on a little bit at a time. So as new funds come available, whether they be through Public Works, future general fund, future bond issues, or MAPS 4, we at least have a great plan that's in place, one that all the city departments are following together to implement the new bike lanes. And we'll make changes if needed if we find that something isn't quite working.
Is the bike lane, is it funded separately from the sidewalk in any category? Is there money funds just for bike lanes, and is that interfered with money that's set up for sidewalks or any other? I mean, it has its own funding category, you're telling me.
It's by different programs. So I would share with you that in the 2017 bond issue and also in, say, the Better Streets Safer City sales tax, we have street enhancement projects that have funding for both components inside those programs. But we do have dedicated sidewalk funds. We do have dedicated trail funds, and we also have dedicated bike funds. So it's not all or one. It's depending on how each program was set up. So going forward with MAPS 4, there's going to be a subcommittee that's going to make those decisions, but there is a dedicated funding source in MAPS 4 for connectivity and walkability, I think is the category. And so they're going to be looking at all of those different categories and how to spend those funds for MAPS 4. Future bond issue, we'll see. As we get ready to start the planning for that, it'll be up to the council to ultimately decide how to propose that for the voters of Oklahoma City.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will, if it's my turn. We've sat, you folks, not you folks specifically, but over the course of the years from Randy Ant's times, we've had some presentations here on the Bike Walk program. And with all respect to them, I do have to say today, this is the most clear presentation that I've seen answering the questions that I personally had and that I believe my colleagues on the commission have as well. specifically with regard to the engagement process. And I think what, I'll name names. Barry Hale expressed it, a couple of months ago with a particular item. It appeared when the item was being presented to us that the background information that the applicant or the person that was making the presentation, the knowledge that they had was fairly limited and an ability to answer our questions. And my question is specifically moving forward with items that we will see directly related to the bike plan. In those items, when you are presenting those, besides what may be in a staff report, I think it would really help all of us if this particular type of engagement took place. This was the particular reaction and percentage of approvals or whatever, however you were doing it. If those could be articulated, I think it's going to be a much smoother process getting this commission to move forward with approvals on these things than us just being totally naive to any of it. So my particular concern has been that, it's been engagement. And I know there's other questions on here, and you have an opportunity with the three finest folks in the city to ask these questions to right now.
Well, just myself, I think Project 180, which did a lot of great stuff, we would always get the tail end. Oh, we just put in a street, we changed this, we did this, and now you have to approve it, so it's right in the book. And I think what you're saying is we need to be more on the front end of it so we understand as it's being done. So when we do approve it, we at least had a say in it or something.
And this presentation is helping us understand the front end.
Right.
In a very general way, not for a particularly specific item, but it should help us.
Right.
Is my mic still on? Sorry.
Since I've been called out, I would like to, you have addressed my concerns, and my concern a couple of months ago was that the community had not been engaged in this to where it was just a decision made and we need you guys to approve it. And I think that you have addressed my concern to where the community now will be engaged before it's implemented, which if you can bring those numbers to us saying, yes, this is what this particular area, this part of the community, this is what they want, it'll make our job a lot easier just to proceed with our decisions.
So Public Works is absolutely committed to that with planning as well, especially when we're asking the commission to make some decisions where it's changing parking or no parking or speed. There are going to be a number of projects that already fit the current street approvals. We're not wanting to change the speed limit. We're not needing to adjust the parking, and the project can go in without any additional approval. And that's meeting a certain percentage of the cases. Not very many of them, but a few. But you'll continue to see us implement, but we would like to make it proactive where we're bringing those items to you real time before the construction, not maybe as it was done in the past.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that I just moved, 3 days ago, to South Walker, right off of the protected lane. And as I was driving here, I thought, man, I wish I had my bike already moved because it's such an easy ride now. And that speaks to the infrastructure of, I lived off of Walker on Northwest 34th, and I wouldn't have felt comfortable coming downtown on the street just because I didn't have the infrastructure in place. And now I feel completely comfortable if I can get over the interstate. That's the problem. If I can get over the interstate on my bike, then I'll be able to do it, but I feel really comfortable now. And so I think that that's exactly how, speaks to what you were saying earlier, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's good to hear. And Public Works did a great job in doing that one quickly. That was, I think, our first one with delineators. And so that's been the pilot project in a lot of ways. And, how many delineators are we going to have to replace, because somehow they just get taken out. So yeah, that's been a great project. And, how often do we have to sweep it? How often do we have to replace delineators? And just some other things. Retrofitting these streets is a challenge for the engineers that do the design. So we've learned a lot. So that's good to hear.
I think you're going to find with Walker, it's going to be one of the first real connected networks. So Walker, when you go to the south, connects to the Grand Trail. So if you're on the Grand Trail and used Walker to come to downtown, as soon as we finish that last section that Max presented, this one little phase 3 of Main Street, you can then ride Main Street clear out to May Avenue, and then the May Avenue all the way through the Will Rogers Expressway Trail, all the way to Lake Hefner. So you're starting to get these completely connected networks going from one side of Oklahoma City to the other, with the ultimate goal that you've got all the area lakes connected, you got all the downtown centers connected, and some of the other design districts that are outlined in the plan. So for more information on the plan, anybody can go online at OKC.gov. You can find Bike Walk there. You can also go to OKC.gov, and if you'll follow the links through Public Works, there's actually an interactive project map there that will show you all the active projects, including bike, trail, sidewalk. But if you're interested in road resurfacing, police, fire, transit, library projects, they're on there as well. And you can simply zoom into the area of Oklahoma City that you're most interested in and click the highlighted projects, and it'll show you the ones that are there. Those are all the funded projects. It won't list the unfunded projects. So if there's interest, OKC.gov's a great reference.
Do you have any questions for us?
You got me there. I hadn't been expecting that question. So,
What would be a tremendous stumbling block for you? If just a hypothetical particular item, or what are you have any concerns about? These items are all published and they're public, and the public knows that they're coming. What about an interest group or a neighborhood or an individual showing up that was not in favor of what was presented here that we may be in favor of? How does that work, I guess, just in the public process?
I think it's going to work just how you operate today. I mean, we're planning to only bring you items that have really a majority, support. If we find through our stakeholder input that we do not have a majority, we're going to look at an alternate design. We're not wanting to put something into a community that is not wanted. So we're trying to do that due diligence before the item gets before you at the commission. I think what you'll hopefully see in your staff reports, if you see that it's a project that's a city project that's funded either by the bond issue or Better Street, Safer City sales tax, or perhaps one of the other cities' programs like MAPS, I think you should have some confidence when you receive that item at the commission that it's been vetted. And I don't want to take anything away from individual requests that come before the commission, but what we've just presented to you is how the program moves forward. It's a partnership between Public Works and Planning, the outreach. We're also working with other city departments, really like with parks as well, especially if it has any relation to sidewalk or trail. So just a lot of effort before you see it for the first time here at the commission.
That very much helps me, and I'm sure the other folks sitting here, because I know that in not too recent past, we were all just very, very vague about, where are these coming from and what's it about. Thank you for articulating that so well.
But I can't tell you that you won't have the protester show, right? So I will tell you that we've not made everybody happy with sidewalks in Oklahoma City. We receive calls, we know that exists, but we are trying to be forthcoming with what is the sense of the community that we're in. So, and we want to share those percentages or those numbers or those surveys or the petitions with you, and you can help make an educated decision from that information.
I'll add on to that, just reinforce that's exactly right. I mean, we're doing everything we can, and I know Eric's staff is doing everything they can on the Main Street project in particular, and also on Lottie, just to make sure that we're doing, because they're all retrofits, and they sometimes, these bike projects can affect, can have some negative impacts that need to be mitigated, and so some of those can be engineered, and we can spend a little more money and kind of help site flow and things like that. And so when we bring a project forward to you, we bring it forward feeling comfortable that this works and that everybody's concerns have been addressed. But like Eric said, that doesn't mean there's not going to be protest. There are probably going to be holdouts and so forth, but we will have done everything we could to address it, and we'll be upfront with you in the meetings and tell you what exactly we've done on a specific site, what the discussions have been. Happy to do all that. So to the extent, and I hope this isn't the case, but there may be somebody who comes up and isn't aware of what's going on. This happens at the Planning Commission despite our best efforts, where somebody wasn't aware of something until the last minute. So It's never the case that we haven't been trying to get the word out and haven't been trying to educate people and get their feedback and work with them. Sometimes those things happen. We can go and work with them. May delay the project, but we're happy to do that.
And Red, your comment about where are the bicyclists? That very legitimate question. After having met with these folks, I totally understand a simpler concept of explanation of build it and they will come. It makes sense to me, especially when we look at other communities around our nation and how they've done bike programs. It's part of transportation.
They are the grandfather of the bike community, Phoenix, Arizona. Their 2050 plan, bicycle plan, the first project that they went with got voted down.
It may have gotten voted down because of the absence of what we're doing here today. We're talking about it before the items go in place.
Well,
There's
I
this
agree.
process,
I mean,
and it's.
We're kind of new to it. I can understand that, but I'm saying at some point it'll start interfering with other priorities, and people will start pushing back.
We just have to wait and see.
We do try, Tulsa has had a similar experience recently, and, that's why we are focused on making sure that we really focus on the impact that we may be having on drivers and minimizing that and mitigating it. And we feel like we've done that in the plan. We continue to do that in the design process as well. But we had a little bit of blowback on the Walker project as well, and but that was was 2 or 3 people. For the most part, it's been a success, and the traffic functions well, just like we thought it would. So.
Well, what you worry about is a program like this, and you're trying to get it funded, but you want to make sure that it doesn't interfere with upkeep of streets and things like that. That people are they're concerned about that too. So that's what they think. Well, where's the money going if they're not fixing the streets?
Yeah.
They're totally separately funded by law.
Yeah, but
right.
Citizens don't see it that way.
Right.
All of them.
Right.
Well, in some cases, in fact, maybe most cases, we end up spending a lot of. One of the things we've learned is that these are much more expensive bike projects, that is, than we anticipated, because we need to do some resurfacing, and it's often more extensive than we anticipated. And that resurfacing applies to the whole street, most, if not all, the time. So it is a benefit to the drivers as well. So we expect we'll continue to do that.
Okay, anything else up here?
Big thank you from
all of us. Thank you. Very good.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Thanks.
Okay, you guys have anything? Any other business for the Traffic Commission? All right, we stand adjourned.